Hello, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gridiron segment here at House Call Sports. My name is Sammy HG. That is Justin. And today we are going to be discussing week 3 of the NFL season. Are teams in panic mode or not? Are these 3-0 undefeated teams frauds or not? And was Bryce Young the problem all along? We got a jam-packed show ready for you guys today. But before we get to that, first, a quick sponsor shout out to Vivid Seats. Vivid Seats is the most trustworthy and easy to navigate ticketing website. They have reliable and rewarding tickets with a 100% buyer's guarantee, which means your transaction will be safe and secure. You will get full service customer care and be compensated for any canceled events. And it's got the only ticket rewards program around. NFL season is hot and ready. We got some great teams that you didn't even think were going to be good are good now. That could be your team. Go get your tickets now at Vivid Seats. Hit the link in the description and go sit vividly. Now, what an interesting week of football we had this past week. A lot of upsets, a lot of very unexpected performances, and we're going to get into the meat of those unexpected performances right now. There was a lot of comments about Bryce Young being benched last week, a lot of criticisms within the organization and outside the organization concerning the benching of Bryce Young. A lot of people saying, oh, that's just the organization being terrible. And I, for one, second that. However, after what happened this past week with the Carolina Panthers scoring 36 points with Andy Dalton starting at QB, here is Andy Dalton's stat line: 319 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was amazing. And not to mention Deontay Johnson, their big acquisition from the offseason. He ended up having the best game of the season so far with 8 catches and 122 yards. So, Justin, I'll go ahead and go to you, brother. It is dark times. I don't think there was any bigger loser than Bryce Young this past week. What were your thoughts on the performance from the Panthers? And was Bryce Young the problem the entire time?
Bryce Young is not the problem at all. Here's the thing. Bryce Young's situation, and for one, I agree with the benching of Bryce Young, both in a performance standpoint, and honestly, I think this is a need in his development, because if you look at him during his first 2 starts in the first 2 games of the season, his confidence is rocked. He's not confident in the pocket. He's not making the throws. He's not reading the defense like he should. He's not the Bryce Young that was the standout in Alabama. And he really needed to take a step back, learn the game, learn the speed of the game, and do it at his own time. So in which case, I agree with it at all. Now, from what we saw in the Panthers game, I don't know if I'm going to consider this like great performance for the Panthers or just absolutely terrible performance by the Raiders, because they were just being carved all throughout the field. And it's insane watching that. Deontay Johnson had a great game. Great. Adam Thielen made an awesome catch before getting injured, which that's going to be something to look at because he officially went on IR today. So they're going to be without Adam Thielen for the next at least 4 games. I don't think Bryce Young, back to the main topic, was the problem the entire time. I think he needed that step back to kind of regain his center, his confidence, everything like that. But ladies and gentlemen, if you are a Panthers fan, I'm sorry to tell you this. Do not get used to winning, especially winning by this much, because it's only a matter of time before teams start knowing what Andy Dalton likes to do again. And then you're going to be right back at square one.
Right, and another thing I do want to point out, I mean, the Raiders are not necessarily this team. I know they beat the Ravens last week, but the Raiders are not necessarily a team that everybody's looking at as a team that's, a formidable opponent, okay? Yeah, they beat the Ravens last week, but a lot of people kind of chalk that up as the Ravens choking more than the Raiders winning. We're always going to give the Raiders some credit. We are, for making that comeback, but everybody and their mom saw the Ravens absolutely choked that lead. And this week we saw it. What's impressive is that it wasn't just the passing offense that improved. It was the rushing offense that improved. Chuba Hubbard averaged 5.4 yards per carry, had 21 carries and 114 yards. So everything was clicking. And if you look at the overall stats for the game for the Panthers, they controlled the time of possession. The total yards was amazing. Even defensively, they only allowed 55 rushing yards. Like this was a completely different team than the last 2 weeks. And quite frankly, I cannot see this happening for the foreseeable future, especially since the very next week they're going to be running into a team that desperately needs a win in the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll get to that in a second. By the way, if you told me the Cincinnati Bengals, if you told me the Carolina Panthers would have a win before the Cincinnati Bengals, I would have called you crazy.
I would have did too, but I'm actually not even surprised by it.
Yeah, honestly, and we'll get to them in a second. Like it's crazy what's going on in Cincinnati. Now, was Bryce Young the problem? Part of it is yes, part of it is no. And I don't want to give a complete, like a full answer because I feel like two things can be right at the same time. And Bryson was just not ready. Let's put it out there. Bryson was just not ready. He was under his third play caller in 2 seasons. That's not healthy at all. On top of that, he just had no confidence whatsoever. The offensive line wasn't doing well. The wide receivers weren't performing well. I mean, everything about the operations that was going on with Bryce Young under center was just terrible. I will say, though, that it's kind of concerning. Yes, Andy Dalton is a veteran. Yes, Andy Dalton is playing against a defense that's not necessarily formidable. I don't necessarily think that Bryce Young was a complete failure at this point. I do think he's still young. I still think he can work. However, I also think that he needs time to step back and learn. And I think Andy Dalton's a great QB to learn from. Right now, the Panthers are kind of lost. They are. And they need some time to like look at the landscape of the league and realize it's not going to be their year this year. You're better off protecting your QB rather than throwing him constantly out there in the wolves and just embarrassing yourself. So Bryce Young, I still believe in him. I still believe in the kid. I still think he can be a good QB in this league. However, it's not a good look. I don't think there was a bigger loser. I know a lot of teams lost this past weekend. There was no bigger loser than Bryce Young in terms of like how, like when you get benched and your team just plays significantly better, you're gonna look bad. That's just the principle. So we'll see exactly what goes on with Bryce Young's future. Maybe it's in Carolina. Maybe that Carolina thinks that, hey, look at what the offense is looking like without Bryce Young. Maybe we can move off of him, bring somebody else in. Who knows what Carolina's thinking? All I know is as long as David Tepper's not making decisions and the head coaches and the people who know football are making the decisions, I think Carolina is going to be just fine. But
that's not going to last longer because Tepper and even announcers and people in the media have talked about this with Tepper. If you're not winning, he wants changes like that. Like he expects Carolina to just magically be a Super Bowl contender. This is not the Carolina Panthers from when Cam Newton was here. This is like a team that desperately needs to be in a rebuild phase. And he, as the owner, needs to learn how to like calm it down and let the football people do their job. But next week is going to be a very interesting game for the Panthers because guess who they got? Cincinnati. So imagine how that goes.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And I think that's a perfect segue to our segment for today's video. Now, obviously, there are a lot of teams that are kind of underperforming this year. However, what is an NFL segment, a football show without a little bit of overreaction? So with that being said, we are going to play a little game called Panic Mode. And what this game essentially is, I'm going to name the team, Justin, and you and me are going to basically say, hey, should this team be panicking or not? With that being said, we're going to go ahead and start with the team you just mentioned, the Cincinnati Bengals. Justin, panic or not?
I'm not panicking with Cincinnati, and here's why. One, they are historically a slow team. They seem to always get in this thing where they lose games. Now, they never went 0-3 during this timeline that I'm thinking of, but they usually go like 1-2 and, in those ranges. And then they slowly start getting better as the season progresses. This past week with Cincinnati's last game, first of all, I really needed them to not play as good as they did because I was in the middle of a fantasy league that had Joe Burrow, and unfortunately I just barely lost because he actually did pat the stats a little. But their defense,
that's a concern, bro.
That they choked against, what was it, Washington?
Washington. I mean, it was the Commanders. It was a rookie QB. This is.
Let me get this straight, because I watched the Commanders last week against the Giants. He did not throw the ball down the field one real time. Not the way he was carving up Cincinnati. Jayden Daniels found his confidence against the Bengals. Now, the reason why I'm saying I'm not panicking with Cincinnati right now is because if they lose against the Panthers next week, then I'm panicking. Now you're 0-4. You lost to pretty much the worst team in the NFL. And your defense is the cause for concern. Now, I remember seeing it because they're also on my Giants schedule that, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to dog walk the Giants. We held the Commanders to 7 field goals. We lost the game, but they didn't score a single touchdown on us. You let Terry McLaurin and Jayden Daniels absolutely cook y'all. And not only were they cooking y'all, the running game was cooking y'all. Everything that could have went wrong in that game did go wrong. Now, Joe Burrow and the Bengals almost came back to at least tie it, but almost, and sometimes only works at horseshoes. It does not work. You can ask the Dallas Cowboys the same thing because they tried the same thing with the Baltimore Ravens. Is it panic time? Not yet, but give it till next week, and then we might be seeing some panicking.
I would agree with you. I'll say this, man. I'm used to slow starts from the Bengals, but I've never seen slow starts to teams that they should be better than. Now, granted, I've seen it. I saw it last year a little bit, but it wasn't this egregious. Look, I've never seen a stretch of inconsistency this crazy. So they went up. They went on to go. They went up against the Patriots. They put up only 10 points. Joe Burrow passes for 164 yards. The run game isn't going. They have 224 yards of total offense. They have no time of possession. Everything is just bad. They turned the ball over twice. It was just bad, right? So 10 points. Next week against the Chiefs, you play a much better game, right? Joe Burrow plays a way better game. 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, right? Your leading receiver, surprisingly, Mike Gesicki. Jamar Chase doesn't get going, but the offense looks significantly better, 320 yards. But the defense ends up giving up 26 points. So now you're seeing a little meat in the middle, but you just lost to the defending champs. This week, against the Commanders, you give up 38 points to a rookie QB, right? Offensive line that's not necessarily that good. No pressure whatsoever. You give up 356 total yards, right? But your offense has 436 yards, 312 passing yards. Joe Burrow plays the best game of the season so far. And somehow, some way, you still find a way to lose. Now, again, football is football, okay? There are different ways to win. There are also different ways to lose. I'm sorry. If this team is supposed to be competing for the AFC North, this is unacceptable. 3 different ways to lose. You put up only 10 points against the Patriots. You give up 38 points against the Washington Commanders. These are not, look, with respect to Commanders and the Patriots, okay? They are fighting, okay? It's not like their teams suck. Like they're teams that, in the future they're going to be good teams. But this year they're rebuilding. This year they're not supposed to make deep playoff runs. This year the Bengals are supposed to be better on paper. They've lost at home. At home. Justin, that is ridiculous. And for that, I'm going to say I'm going to say yes to panicking because this is, look, I would understand if it's on the road, but you're facing two teams that are inferior and you lose by that margin. Schedule, the good thing they have a favorable schedule, but I'm panicking right now because the way they're looking, they look against teams that are clearly not that good, are clearly should be significantly worse than them. You got to be kidding me, man. I say yes to panicking because it is not good. 0-3 teams do not make deep playoff runs historically. So
they don't make the playoffs, period, on average.
Exactly. So it's just, and that's the thing, that the Bengals are trying to win a Super Bowl, right? And
that's the makeup.
This game is not on Joe Burrow at all by any means. However, the defense clearly just did not show up, and it showed. It definitely showed. Next team up, we have the San Francisco 49ers losing to the LA Rams without Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Justin, is it panic time for the San Francisco 49ers?
No, we are not panicking with the 49ers. The same way that the Rams did not have Puka Nacua, the same way they didn't have Cooper Kupp is the same way that the Niners did not have Kittle, the same way they didn't have CMC, the same way they didn't have Debo either for that game. It was a good game overall. We expected something like this between both of these teams. So, no, I'm not panicking. First of all, the offense of the San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy specifically, had a damn good game.
Amen.
I will say he had a damn good. That's why I can't wait until after this offseason to see how much he's getting paid, because he's got to be at like 65 minimum around that point.
I mean, the way he's playing so far, I mean, last week wasn't exactly his best, but against the Rams without Debo and Kittle and throwing to Jawan Jennings. And
Jawan Jennings is a fantasy pickup at this point. While these guys are injured, he is a fantasy waiver wire target.
Yeah, definitely.
But the Niners are going to be fine. Let them get healthy. They're going to be running things once again. There's no issues in San Francisco. Y'all can calm down.
Yeah, I'm looking at 2 straight games of what I would consider get-back games. I think the Patriots and Cardinals, because the Cardinals have been surprising a lot of teams. I do think the Cardinals are one of those teams that, should be the Niners should be able to handle. The Patriots, just talent-wise, I think the Niners are better. Look, next 2 games I think are get-back games for sure. I do think that there is a little bit of concern concerning the defense. I think their secondary is a little, and their defense, the secondary for the defense, and then injuries as well. I think if there's anything, Javon Hargrave is now out for the season with a torn tricep. Kittle and Debo are battling injuries. Like in terms of overall, like if there's anything that's gonna derail this Niners season, it's gonna be injuries for sure. Right now, their injuries definitely hammering hard on them. I'm looking at these 2 games for get-back games. It's gonna be a little rough after that though, because then you got to play at Lehman Stadium at the Seahawks. You got to face the Chiefs. You got to face the Cowboys. You got to face the Buccaneers, the Seahawks again, then the Packers, then the Bills. It gets difficult. It's getting more and more difficult as the season goes on. So these next 2 games, ironically enough, these are must-win games. These are. And after dropping one against the Los Angeles Rams, a team that you should have beaten, because at the end of the game, it wasn't. At the end of the game, they made crucial mistakes. And it's a game they should have won. These next 2 games are must-win games. If they lose any of these games, I'm starting to be like, okay, there's something wrong. So much like you think about the Bengals about next week against the Panthers, that get-back game, I have that same feeling for the 49ers. I just trust the 49ers a little bit more because I trust Kyle Shanahan a little bit more. I do not trust Zach Taylor.
But can we also admit this when it came to that Niners and Rams game? Both of these offenses are dang near injury proof when it comes to wide receivers. Because the top leading receivers were Jawan Jennings and I believe Tutu Atwell for the Rams. Those are names you don't necessarily hear all the time. So that's why I have all faith in the 49ers. I don't think that there's going to be any real like pushback, because I feel like that offensive scheme is made to pretty much work no matter who is on the field, as long as your quarterback is at least decent.
Right. Next team up, we got a team that, well, week 1 they looked a lot better against the Browns, but the last 2 weeks they've essentially gotten blown out, with the exception of the Ravens, where they made a late push. 22 points in the fourth quarter is no shrug. But we got the Cowboys, and Cowboys are an interesting team, right? Very polarizing team. Justin, I'll ask you, are you panicking or not concerning the Cowboys?
Panicking. I am smashing the panic button when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. And this is not just me as a Giants fan. By the way, I will be there this Thursday with the Giants taking on the Cowboys at MetLife Stadium. But there are reasons to panic in Dallas. One, I think the offense is fine. I feel like the offense, besides the lack of a running game, the pass game, perfectly fine. I think Dak Prescott's having a good season so far. I feel like outside of CeeDee Lamb, he just has to work on his connection with the other receivers. But that's going to happen by the midway point of the season. I've seen it every year. Their running game, though, has to improve. You have the ghost of Ezekiel Elliott and running backs whose names that I don't even know.
Rico Dowdle. Yes, Rico Dowdle.
There we go. Rico. And then you got Deuce Vaughn, whom I feel like I haven't seen all season. But that's not where the panic is coming from. The panic is coming from that defense.
Mm-hmm.
That defense, I feel like every team that they have played so far, minus the Cleveland Browns, are doing exactly what I said you need to do against the Cowboys. Find where Micah Parsons is, and then just run that way or run straight up the gut. Because they do not have a run defense right now. You have 2 good pass rushers, 3 really. You have, I believe, Mozzie Smith, you have DeMarcus Lawrence, and you have Micah Parsons. You have good pass rushers on the edge. How do you combat that? You either throw to the perimeter or you run it up the gut. And guess what? They have not been able to stop the run. I think they are the last team in the NFL when it comes to run defense. And the fact that they have been blown out by the Saints, and then the fact that they got blown out in the first half against the Ravens, that tells you a lot. Also, if you look at the sidelines, you see Micah Parsons is frustrated with this team for obvious reasons. Y'all are not performing up to standard. You are not winning games. And the fact is, you have this frustration now, which you've had for the last week and a half, because let's be real, what we're learning now about the NFL with these teams, the Cleveland Browns are ass. So you beat the Cleveland Browns. Guess what? Everybody beat the Cleveland Browns at this point. We beat the Cleveland Browns. Second week, you got pretty much Diddy treatment by the Saints.
Oh yes, my gosh, Justin.
And then you decided to grab the baby oil and do it again week 3 for the first half against the Ravens.
Oh my gosh.
That ran it right up the gut.
Man.
Yes, we are going.
Oh my gosh. Diddy jokes are gonna hit every time.
All the time.
Anyway.
So now you have to get that out of your system on a short week, because you have to fly from Dallas to MetLife to face the Giants on Thursday Night Football, a team that in recent history you've been able to beat all the time. But the fact that you're coming off of back-to-back losses, the fact that you are coming back from back-to-back horrible performances by your defense, the fact that your star pass rusher is now feeling the frustration, also the fact that he's the only star on the team that hasn't gotten paid yet. So he's got that probably somewhere on the back of his mind. And the fact that you have to travel to this game on a short week with the Giants, who are coming off of a win. Football is a momentum game. That momentum has to carry over. If this was a Sunday to Sunday, it'd be a different story. So I'm panicking on them now, and don't let them lose against the Giants on Thursday. Because if they do that and they go 1-3, you gonna see just panic throughout. Even Jerry Jones is gonna start flipping out at this point.
And Jerry Jones is the ultimate optimist for no reason whatsoever. Look, a couple stats on this defense and how poor they're performing. 3 weeks in, they're 30th in points per game. They're 28th in yards per game. They've given up. They're 28th in yards per play. I mean, third down conversion. They're middle of the third down defense. They're 15th. And then I think the most indicting stat right now. Whenever any team gets to the red zone, that team is not just breaking, they're shattering. They are last in the league in red zone defense. And you mentioned the rushing, Justin, you mentioned the rushing. Check this out. I mean, they're last in yards per rush. They're last in yards per game. I mean, it's not looking good, and it doesn't help on the other. They are, understand this. They not only can't guard the run, they can't run the ball either. So when it comes to the trenches, point blank period, the Dallas Cowboys are not ready for prime time. Like, it's that simple. They haven't been ready. And mind you, this is also, we got to also understand this. This is a Dallas Cowboys team, an organization that prides itself in its offensive line. Right now, there is no pride whatsoever. You can try to mask it all you want, but Tyron Smith, the leaving of Tyron Smith, it's affecting this roster. And I say, yeah, I think it is time to panic 1,000% because
not even just Tyron Smith, but you know who they're missing more? Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn as well, because the defense.
Dan Quinn,
well, even then,
made that defense.
Even then, I think Dan Quinn's look. The funny thing about that is that even Dan Quinn's defense weren't really good at defending the run either. Like you said it yourself, when they run towards Michael Parsons, it's barbecue chicken. Yes. Dan Quinn leaves, right? They bring in somebody else. I think it's Mike Zimmer.
Yep.
And it's just the same exact story. And even it's the same exact story. And I'm sorry to say, but if it's going to be the same exact thing, why are we expecting it to change from week to week? I'm out on the Cowboys already. There's a chance they might not make the playoffs with how bad they've been playing. I think that is the kind of panic you should have because I get it. You're facing against two teams that are, I assume, going to be in the playoff hunt with the Saints and the Ravens. But again, you're in the NFC. There are well-rounded teams all over there. And overall, I'm just no amount of money you give CeeDee Lamb, no amount of money you give Dak Prescott is going to save the fact that your team's defense looks like Swiss cheese. So, but that's the bottom line. But CeeDee Lamb,
let them lose that game on Thursday.
Yeah, I know you're so excited about that game on Thursday, man.
Let them lose.
This is the most excited I've seen you for a game in the longest time.
Since week one last year.
Since week one last year, you've never been this excited. I would temper those expectations just a little bit, man. The Giants, look, I'm a big Malik Neighbors guy. Okay, he has looked fantastic through 3 weeks, by the way. But look, the Giants still got that man Daniel Jones at QB, and I'm still not exactly the biggest fan of him. Now, next,
but you know what we don't got? We don't got Evan Neal at right tackle, and where does Michael line up on the right side? We're good.
You guys are good.
If you actually see the offensive line performance when it comes to the Giants, we're middle of the pack, but we've done okay against some of the
middle of the pack. Considering that you guys have been terrible last couple of years,
that's a win.
Middle of the pack is a win. Yeah, I would say it's a win. Next team up, we're going to do 2 more teams, and then we're going to go ahead and move on. Next team up, we're going to do the Miami Dolphins. It's panic time. Let me just say it right now. It is.
Okay, you're going first on this one.
Yeah, I am. This is my team, obviously, from the Miami sign that you see over there. It's panic time, and the reason it's panic time is that Tua is not coming back for a while. right? He's just now seeing his specialist. So we can't even guarantee that IR is going to be when he comes back from IR, that he's going to be all good. It's going to take a pretty big while. So even then, the offense looks terrible. I do like the way the defense is played, but man, I'm looking at the moves that we've made. The offensive line does not look that good. Skylar Thompson got completely destroyed. Not that it mattered. He sucks. You had Todd Boyle come in, and he didn't look that much better. Mike McDaniel, I believe, look, I don't think he's got a candidate to get fired or anything because of the injuries that are happening so far. However, I do think that you got to get your best players the ball, and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are your best players, and they're not getting the ball. It's that simple. Excuse me. It's panic time. It is, because I don't think we're going to be able to put up a lot of points against any team, any defense, if any QB other than Tua is not, because we've seen it now. Without Tua, this offense is just not that good. And it's a shame. Now, I understand the offense didn't look that good early on in the season with Tua, but you chalk that up usually as early on in the season, things happen, you can develop through it. And then you're facing teams that are more that you can match up with, you can scheme well for. Not happening. It's that simple. It's not happening. So I think it's panic time right now. I'm going to the Monday Night Football game with a buddy of mine. I have never been less excited to go to a game, a Monday Night Football game. But I do hope that Snoop Huntley starts. I don't want anybody else starting. I want Snoop Huntley to start just to see what he can bring to the table. If he runs it, I just want to win. Just get at 2-2 because I just get a couple wins before we go ahead. Before Tua gets back. Hopefully he gets back. I don't know if he's going to see a neurologist this week. So I don't know if he is going to come back yet, but regardless, I still think it's panic time. Without Tua, this offense just looks lost. The defense, it's looked okay, but I mean, there are times where it just completely shuts down.
I'm not panicking with the Miami Dolphins just because I don't consider it panic time when teams are struggling due to injuries. Unless it's like really insane, like not for nothing, the Dolphins last year with all the injuries they were getting in key positions, those were causes to panic. Now, honestly, your offensive philosophy is similar to that of the Niners. You will be fine as long as your quarterback is at least decent. The quarterbacks y'all have behind Tua is not going to cut it. No offense. Yeah. Your defense can survive. Your weapons on the offense are top tier. You just need a decent quarterback. So I'm surprised that y'all haven't done the obvious thing that the Miami Dolphins should be doing, and that is getting on a phone and getting a certain quarterback that was your starter back in Miami and telling him, hey, we have a dire need at quarterback for at least the next couple of weeks. Are you healthy? Are you in shape? Let's bring you down for a workout. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you need to get on the phone with Tannehill and get him in the building. Because unless you do that or another veteran that actually knows what they're doing and can actually process what's going on the field, then you're going to be panicking. But at that point, it's front office's fault. Y'all need to do the obvious and just make it happen if you want any chance to win games this season, let alone win the division. You're probably looking at a wild card hunt at this point.
It's just tough to be optimistic because I know this team. Let me tell you, it's like you know how you know your team. I know mine, so it's just a very difficult pill to swallow for sure. I still think that this team has a bright future if Tua stays healthy. Tyreek has said that he wanted to stay. Waddle is already got extended, right? There's still some bright spots in the future for this team, but the reality is that as of this year, not looking very good. And right now, I'm not gonna lie, it looked like we were gonna be the favorites to win the division early on this year. It's looking like we might finish third, and that's putting it nicely because the Patriots have looked like they've been punching above their weight lately. So
Hey, worst case scenario, Shedeur Sanders to the Miami Dolphins.
I don't want to hear that. Hey, that would get a lot of eyes on the Miami Dolphins product. Hey, let me tell you, man, this QB class in college, a little quick side note, is a lot better than a lot of people are expecting it to be, man. It's looking a lot. I know a lot of people last year were saying, oh, it's barren. It's got no shot. I don't know. It's looking kind of, I mean, you see what Cam Ward is doing in Miami. You see what Jackson Dart is doing at Ole Miss. Shedeur Sanders, you saw that throw against Baylor.
The injury.
Quinn Ewers, like it's looking like this draft class has got a couple of quarterbacks. Now, obviously, it's not going to be the 2026 draft class that I think is going to be a lot better. But, man, it's not looking bad. Now, there's one more team I want to discuss. I think this is an easy one for all of us. For all of us to pick. I was gonna say the Browns, but I think the Browns, we all are aware, are kind of just like not that good. They're panicking, but here's a team that I know we're gonna say panic, but I want to get into a bit of a discussion with before we move on to our next segment. The Jacksonville Jaguars. I have a big red button here, and I'm slamming that button 15 damn times. I'm slamming it 15 times. Early on this year, I said to everybody that Trevor Lawrence is going to be A-okay, that this team was going to be solid at the very least. So far, Rob and Justin have been spot on with the Jaguars. Rob said earlier this year that this team would finish last in the division. And so far, I have seen nothing to think otherwise. I think Trevor Lawrence played a good first game against the Miami Dolphins. Even then, he didn't light up the stat sheet. That's about it. Against the Browns, he was not very good. Against the Bills, he was not very good. Trevor Lawrence has just been not that good. And I got to say, generational talent, yeah, my ass. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't say it. Now, Justin, you made an interesting comment about Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence being the Daniel Jones of the AFC. And I'm not going to stand on bit. I'm not going to, say that you're fully correct, but you are well on your way because my goodness, Trevor Lawrence is a turnover machine. That turnover he had is his first interception of the year, but the turnover he had against the Bills, where he had a wide receiver wide open, he overthrew it, and it was like the most Daniel Jones interception I've ever seen in my life. Like I outside of that Daniel Jones interception, not that I've never seen anything like it, but Trevor Lawrence, who's supposed to be excuse me for that. I'm going to reiterate, a generational talent coming out of college, not looking good whatsoever. So, look, a QB like Trevor Lawrence is straight up supposed to elevate talent. He is. Justin, you said this. Rob has said this. And so far, Trevor Lawrence hasn't been doing that. He hasn't done it with Christian Kirk. He hasn't done it with his rookie Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver that came in, Gabe Davis. Now, these are not good names. Let's make that very clear. These are not elite wide receivers. These are not wide receivers that you are like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. And they have not been performing well either. But as a QB, you are at the very least supposed to do what you can to make things interesting with those weapons. It hasn't happened. Now, I don't think that Trevor Lawrence is the only reason that this team should hit the panic button. Doug Peterson is going to get fired. I think at the midseason, it will be over for Doug Peterson because of how his team has regressed in back-to-back seasons now. At one point, we thought Jacksonville would be the class of the AFC South. They might be at the very bottom after this year. And, I'm still think that Trevor Lawrence can be a great QB in this league. I still do. However, right now, it's not happening. It's that simple. I'm not going to say he's Daniel Jones or anything because I still think Trevor Lawrence is still a lot more talented. But right now, the talent has not led to wins. It has not led to production either through 3 weeks into this season. So, Justin, I know what button you're pressing. I'm here. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Yep. There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, the editors of this show, please loop back to the point, and I will reiterate what I said. He is the Daniel Jones of the AFC. It's time for y'all to open your eyes and see it. He is not a good quarterback. I'm sorry to tell you. If you're giving shit about Daniel Jones stealing $40 million a year, that man has $55 million per year. Now, let's take a look, because you've been reading stats. So far in 3 games against the Dolphins, the Browns, and the Bills, 560 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 75% quarterback rating. Now, I don't know the quarterback rating off the top of my head. Daniel Jones has 600 yards, 4 touchdowns, and yes, 2 interceptions. Don't that sound eerily similar? And yet you still think that they are not anywhere close to similarity in terms of
They're not. It's just they're not. Like, I don't know how to tell you.
I will give you why. If you looked at the game against the Bills, Trevor Lawrence, the reason he sailed that ball, which was a very easy interception for Damar Hamlin, he didn't set his feet. Mind you, the pocket wasn't collapsing around him like that. He just had bad fundamentals. Oh, shit. It's almost like we say the same thing about Daniel Jones. Bad fundamentals, doesn't set his feet, sails the ball over his wide receiver's head, gets an easy interception for the defense. Oh, my God. It's like we haven't heard that before. But you know what? I'm going to lay off of Trevor Lawrence. I'm not going to go fully in on him. And I should spend more time on the Jaguars defense. Because for a team that was once known as Saxonville,
that was a long time ago, man.
You let Josh Allen dog walk you. Dog walk you.
It's Josh Allen. It's Josh Allen, though, Justin. Like, it's not like Josh Allen's not a...
It's not the best. First of all, Josh Allen, the first 2 games of the season, was not throwing the ball as much as what he was doing against Jacksonville.
That's a fair point.
He embarrassed y'all. He embarrassed Jacksonville. He embarrassed Jaguars fans. If you just look at the game, I'm about to rewatch the game just to like highlight this fact. Look at the faces of the Jaguars fans when they started seeing the score being run up. The fact that they only needed a half of football to absolutely lay the amount of smackdown on them that they did, you know it's bad when you rest your starters and you put your backups in there. We got to see Mitch Trubisky in a game. Mitch Trubisky. And let's not forget, and Rob is going to love this one, the Jaguars put their backups in the game as well.
Yeah, I saw that. Mac Jones.
Mac Jones went in the game. First play.
That's funny, bro.
Fumbles it.
That was hilarious.
Yes. Panic. Doug Peterson, oh my God. You know what? I have respect for him. He did lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl victory with a backup quarterback. But Jacksonville is a lost cause this season. It's time. It's time to panic. And the fact that you also have a $55 million quarterback, once again, who is performing the way that Trevor Lawrence is performing, yeah, it's time to go. It's time to clean house. Jacksonville, welcome back to the realm of mediocrity that y'all have spent so many years in.
It's a very poor display of coaching, of QB play, of play calling. It's just bad in Jacksonville right now, and I didn't think it'd get much worse than last year, but it has. It 1000% has, and it could be reaching a boiling point, right? Like it's not like this team Jacksonville is going to have a. Now, granted, it's not like they're facing teams that are going to be. It's not like they're facing crazy teams like the Browns and the Dolphins. We saw them first 2 weeks; they didn't look that good, and they still lost. The Bills, you saw them. But now you're gonna go against Houston. You're gonna go against the Colts. I mean, the schedule is not looking that much better for you considering how they're playing right now. So overall, I think Jacksonville, you hit that panic button. You might have to fire Doug Peterson, start from scratch again, which at this point, I don't know exactly how Trevor Lawrence is going to be able to go from Urban Meyer. Mind you, this is his 3rd year under Doug Peterson. 3rd year. Mm-hmm. Like this is not, it's different when it's not working originally, but it was working. Now it was kind of wasn't working. Now it's definitely not working. And now it's to the point where you got to try a completely brand new system. And that's completely unfortunate.
It's hard.
Next segment we have is fraud or not. And this segment, we have a couple of 3-0 teams. That all their fan bases are celebrating. Everybody's super happy. Don't get too excited. We're here to pump the brakes on some of you hopping on that bandwagon. With that being said, we'll start with the first team up, a bit of an easy one. We'll go with the Bills, who are starting off 3-0, including 2 straight blowout wins against the Dolphins and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Fraud or not, Justin?
Not
at all.
Not. And the reason they are not is because they are doing one thing different that they have not done in previous years. They don't need Josh Allen to be Superman with what's going on. Cook is out here staking his claim as one of the top running backs in the league, which great. Another Cook that's like one of the top people. Hopefully he doesn't fall off like his brother did. You have a good core of young receivers between Shakir, Coleman, and the defense is doing what we all knew the Bills defense was capable of doing. They're getting pressure against your quarterback. They're doing enough so that way they could get their offense on the field and they could just run up the score on y'all. The Bills are probably, out of all the 3-0 teams here, the least likely to be frauds. And they look like they are about to once again take this division.
Yeah, it's all about Josh Allen. I know you mentioned all that, the wide receivers. They got a good young wide receiver core. They got a guy like James Cook. But the truth is, it's still all about Josh Allen. That's not going to change. And as long as Josh Allen is on that team, this team is going to be running the AFC East. Now, I understand what people are going to say about the Jets. Right now, Josh Allen is playing at a different level, and he should be the MVP front runner for the entire league. Now, next up, we're going to go with another easy one. Again, this team is actually off to a bit of a shaky start, but due to their track record of Super Bowl wins and back-to-back Super Bowl wins, you kind of have no choice but to give them their flowers. Next up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. I feel like this is a stupid question. Fraud or not, Justin?
Not. And they're doing the exact same things that they do pretty much every year. Make something out of nothing. Make lemonade out of lemons. And, the referees keep bailing them out from time to time.
Oh, yeah. Every single game.
We're going to ignore that.
Without fail. Yo, Justin, it's the funniest thing. Rob, clip this. It's the funniest thing. Week 1, it was against the Ravens. What happened in that game? I keep forgetting what happened in that game.
Was it the lack of a pass interference, something like that? Or
that was the game. That was his past game. That was his past week. Against the Bengals. Oh my goodness. Against the Bengals, they were like, oh, it's a great call. It's a great call. All of that is completely negated after what we just saw yesterday. Was he playing the receiver? Was he playing the ball? That was the question the entire week. This week on Sunday Night Football, primetime television, at the fourth quarter, I remember Roger Goodell in the fourth quarter. Who was the receiver? It was Brian Cook. There was the safety. He was playing, I believe, Kyle Pitts. Yes, yep. I remember. Kyle Pitts. He was not going for the ball. He was playing the receiver. It was an easy call. Where's the consistency? Where is the consistency? And this is why NFL fans have an issue with this. I will say this. Atlanta had a chance to come back and win the game. So at the end of the day, Atlanta, the Chiefs didn't get anything out of it. The Chiefs didn't get anything out of it. Atlanta was given a second chance, and a couple of penalties drove them down the field themselves. However, it's week after week after week without fail. Something is going on. The NFL does. I'm not saying the NFL
in the dynasty.
I mean, this is the dynasty. This is the way the dynasty is. Well, the funny thing is that I see Patriots fans complaining. Hello. If it isn't the pot calling the kettle black, like what in the world is going on here? You guys are complaining? No, you guys can't complain.
Patriots says, please understand what you're seeing with the Chiefs now is what y'all have had all throughout the 2000s.
They're saying, but here's what they say. They're like, oh, we did it with grace. We did it with class. We did it. Shut up. No, you didn't. No, it was just as annoying then as it is right now. The only difference is that Taylor Swift is part of the occasion. Okay, that is literally it. So Taylor Swift, no Taylor Swift, it was annoying. It's ridiculous. Okay, it's ridiculous, and we're gonna go ahead and move on because I don't want to dwell too much on this absolute buffoonery that is the officiating for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not frauds by any means. Okay, they have Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. Really, all you really need to compete for a Super Bowl. We've seen it time and time again.
However, Mahomes, Andy Reid, and all the refs.
And all the refs, exactly. And 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. Next, undefeated team. This team is very interesting, Justin, because this is one of the teams that we did not expect to get off to a hot start. The Minnesota Vikings. What a story they've become. Headlined by Sam Darnold and how well he's been performing on MVP candidates 3 weeks into the season. No one could have expected that. Fraud or not, Justin?
They're not frauds. However, they are one of the most surprising teams of this season.
Right.
The fact that they managed to go 3-0 and they probably kind of gave my Giants a bit of a pass because of how they've been doing the other teams this season. Look, Sam Darnold is playing out of his mind. He's playing like the Sam Darnold that we thought he was going to be coming out of USC. And this is another example of, and guess what, Jets fans, I'm throwing you in this bucket, another former Jets quarterback that played better after leaving y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Did it. He's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I swear to God, let the Broncos have quarterback trouble. And freaking, what's his name?
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson comes in and starts playing at a high level. It's just going to be a Jets problem at this point. But going back to Minnesota, they have everything you want in a team. Their quarterback is playing well. Their running game is playing well. You have a all-world receiver in Justin Jefferson, and you have a swarming defense led by a defensive coordinator that is known to attack. So does it shock me that they're 3-0? Abso-fucking-lutely, because I was not expecting it. But let's be honest. If they had switched out the name of a quarterback, we would not be surprised as we are now. It's just the fact that we've seen Sam Darnold play at a Pro Bowl level. I'm not saying MVP level. I'm sorry. It's way too soon for that. I need to see it at the halfway point before I even put him on a watch list for that. But at a Pro Bowl level, yes. Does it shock me? Absolutely. But are they frauds? Absolutely not.
I'm going to say they're not frauds either. I think this defense is 1,000% for real because they've faced two teams that are trying to win Super Bowls this year. And I get it. It's early on in the season.
Beat the Niners.
Yeah, they beat the Niners and they beat them clean. Okay. It wasn't like, they scrapped away. No, they were up by a couple touchdowns before the Niners started to crawl back. They just kicked the Texans' ass last night, 2 nights ago. They did. And it was not close whatsoever. No. I do think the Texans offense is going to bounce back eventually, but their offensive line is not looking very good. And that's a product of Brian Flores just making QBs very uncomfortable. I gotta say they brought in some underrated pieces during the offseason, and it's starting to pay a lot of dividends. Let me tell you, it really is. So I'm going to say they're not frauds. I think they're playoff contenders. I think they're a team to watch in the NFC. And Kevin O'Connell, early candidate for Coach of the Year, because he is. When Kirk Cousins left, it looked like they were going to take a step back in that division. 3 weeks in,
they took a step forward.
And exactly, I was going to make that point right now. They look like they have made a gigantic step forward to the point where look. I know what they're thinking about having JJ McCarthy. If Sam Darnold keeps playing like this, man, you don't really need the guy, but I get why they would keep him.
No. It's not about not needing him. No. You do the Jordan Love treatment.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. They might not need him now. Like they were probably thinking to themselves, Sam Darnold 1-year deal, because it is a 1-year deal. They were thinking Sam Darnold 1-year deal will develop him. But now with Sam Darnold playing this well, it comes to the point, well, we don't need JJ McCarthy to develop as fast as we think because we're winning. So re-sign Sam Darnold to a good extension, maybe. Have JJ McCarthy learn that last year of JJ McCarthy's contract, you can get him. See how far Sam Darnold can take you before switching QBs is all I'm saying to Minnesota Vikings fans, because it's looking very, very good. Our next team is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. And let me tell you, the Seattle Seahawks are probably one of the most slept on undefeated teams I think I've seen. They have gotten no real media coverage whatsoever. And I don't think, that's by design. I just think that, to check out the teams they played the Broncos, they played the Patriots, and they played the Dolphins. So my question to you, Justin, are they frauds or are they not frauds?
Frauds. And I say it not because they're not talented. It's not because of that. They are very talented as a team. And I feel like this new regime in the coaching is just going to keep progressing them forward. But the fact that you are 3-0 against 3 terrible teams, fraud. You will be in contention for the division. You will likely get in for a wild card. But compared to all the other teams we have talked about, which has at least one quality win over a contending team, I can't call you not yet because I need to see you against real competition. They
have a chance this Monday against the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football.
There we go.
To prove them wrong right there. So we're going to really see if they're frauds then. I do agree with you. I think that we need to see a bit more from Seattle. I do think that I know the score wasn't necessarily indicative of what happened, but it was a lot closer. The Dolphins only scored 3 points, but the defense of the Dolphins ended up making things a lot more interesting than things needed to be. You mentioned the
You're muted. Good job, Sammy. Still muted. Like, you're literally muted.
What in the world is going on with my mic? All right, 58-minute mark. I apologize, Rob. You got to see with the Seahawks, it's just all about finding that next step, like performing well. I want you to perform better against these teams than you are, because going overtime against the Patriots doesn't move me. Blowing out a team with no quarterback doesn't move me. Beating the Broncos does not move me. So this Monday, I think they have a shot to really prove something. But until then, bam, frauds. Finally, in our final discussion of the day, the Pittsburgh Steelers are undefeated with Justin Fields as their quarterback. Justin, fraud or not?
Fraud.
Damn.
I'm so sorry. The only reason that the Steelers are undefeated right now is because they have an all-world defense. Because that offense is not scaring anybody. I tried to watch the Steelers game because I have NFL Plus, so I got all the replays. It just bores me. Their offense bores me. Justin Fields, the only reason I'm happy right now is that he is 3-0 as the starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Chicago Bears, no offense to Kyle, the Chicago Bears are like 1-2 right now. And Caleb Williams ain't looking like the generational talent that everybody keeps saying that he is. Am I worried about the Bears? No, I think they're going to be fine at the end of the season. The only thing I'll probably be worried about is how Caleb Williams actually handles losing, because it seems like he is a bit of a sore loser at times. But going back to the Steelers, frauds, because that offense, if you could score points against them, they would not be undefeated. If you can neutralize, because you can't stop, if you can neutralize the pass rush and actually get yards and score points, you can beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is a reason that even though Mike Tomlin, as much as I respect this man as a coach, as much as he goes without ever having a losing season, there is also a reason why his teams do not make deep runs into the playoffs, because then they start playing teams that actually can put up points. So yes, until I can see your offense improve, you are a fraud in my book.
Yeah, in their wins, they've had 18 points, 13 points, and 20 points. Nothing to really like wrap your head around. Justin Fields has been pedestrian. He hasn't been taking a lot of shots downfield. He's been a check down merchant, and that's good for what the Steelers are trying to do. It's very simple. And when you have an elite defense like the defense that you have, you can do these things. But let's check out who they're putting these points up against: the Broncos, the Falcons, and the Chargers. The Chargers have a banged up Justin Herbert. The Falcons, first year with Kirk Cousins, so far not exactly off to a great start. And then the Broncos have Bo Nix, so not much I can.
The Chargers also lost Justin Herbert during,
and they did lose Justin Herbert during that game. So I still think Justin Herbert. I still think the Steelers, they're going to be frauds, but like I said, I think for now, I want to see if that offense continues to get better. It's a brand new QB, it's a brand new scheme, so I want to see how much that team offensively gets throughout the year before we stamp them as like frauds. But right now, yeah, they are, because no, your defense is not going to be that good to a Super Bowl appearance, okay? Very rarely does that happen. It's happened only a couple times. So with that being said, it's just for the Steelers, they're a good team. I still think they're going to be a tough team to beat because Mike Tomlin just has them ready to go every single time. So with that being said, it's just right now I just don't see them making any noise. They have a chance to win the division only because that division has just been off to a very slow start among all parties, including the Bengals and the Ravens. So with that being said, that concludes our show here. Who do you think is a fraud? Do you think any of the teams should be panicking? And what about Bryce Young? Is Bryce Young really the problem? I'll let you guys answer those questions down below in the comment section. Hit that like button. Please subscribe if you're new and follow us on all social media platforms. We love you guys, and that's going to be it for us. Peace.